Today's Fashion Friday interview is with fashion, home goods, and leather designer Max Mizur. As soon as you meet Max, you know that there is a lot going on upstairs. In his interview, he talks about his path to become a fashion designer, advice for fashion designers, and some terrific advice regarding fear. Stick around. Hi creators, my name is Skye Lucking, host of Courageous Creatives, the YouTube channel that elevates you to your highest self using inspiration, education, courage building, and community. Today is Fashion Friday, where I cover fashion industry news in Arizona and abroad, including fashion designers, fashion models, fashion stylists, and other movers and shakers in the fashion industry. If that sounds like that's down your runway, click the subscribe button and the bell notification so you never miss a video. Max Mizur was kind enough to sit down with me right before one of his fashion shows at the Casa Blanca lounge. He is a pleasure to speak with because he is eloquent, he is confident, and he has a lot to say about fashion design and what it takes to become a successful fashion designer. You can tell immediately that he is driven, he is focused, and he is busy. Check it out.
My name is Max Mizur, and I design under a synonymous label, which is called Max Mizur. Right now we're doing women's clothing. In the spring or fall, depending on how the scheduling works out, we'll do a men's line as well. And then somewhere in the near distant future, very likely fall of this year, we'll release a furniture and home goods line as well. Well, how did I get involved in fashion? That's quite a story. I think fashion is one of those strange worlds where you almost have to either fall into it or be destined to end up there. It's impossible for me to tell which one I am yet, whether I fell into it or whether I was destined to end up here. For me, it all starts with the desire for people to have better products. And everything we could possibly talk about next, marketing, the expression of the individual, blah, 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 it's all really an extension of a great product. It's a great way to explain your product. So for me, it started with functionality and really well-made products that were what I felt like were lacking from the American people. The very first thing I designed is actually still for sale on our website. It's the simple backpack, or just the backpack. I'm not sure how it's titled right now. It's over the years increased in price and gotten a little bit more streamlined and light is the right word. It was heavy in its first variant. But yeah, the very first thing we ever did was that backpack. What was my path to get to this point? It's a great question. I think oftentimes this question is answered in kind of a foo-foo-y, made-up sort of way. My path to this came very much so from my love of strong American, especially because I'm American women. And I think a better way to answer that is to say that through no clear fault or purpose or driving intent of my own, I've been surrounded with very strong women my entire life. And as a result, now it becomes clear to me that there was really very few careers that wouldn't involve women in some way or another, and this one I find is the most expressive, and it lends me the most ability to really say what I want to say while still, again, giving people things they want to use.
Tell me about some of these strong women in your life.
My mother takes the cake. She, the greatest testament to her is that she made it through my adolescence, because I was about the worst teenager you could possibly fathom. And even beyond my own family, there's been a strange, maybe I look for them, maybe I'm looking for them, but there's been a strange ongoing trend of these women finding me, because again, I'm not sure I'm trying to find them. I'm not sure that I'm putting out some kind of energy, but my whole life they're everywhere, and I've learned to just love it. Family is we're 3 generations into running for our lives. We fled Germany during slightly before the Holocaust took place. So my great-grandfather and my grandfather's almost entire lives were dedicated to rebuilding a sense of self for our family. And then my dad's a doctor, and he's dedicated his whole life to healing others. Well, there's 2 things you should know if you're embarking upon a career in design, really, and that goes for any design, not just fashion, but even architecture or commercial design, whatever you want to take from it. Anyone going into design needs to be 2 things. One, that is incredibly arrogant. This industry, no matter what it is, mine's fashion, will beat you to your knees, and you cannot even let it begin. So you have to be very tough and very arrogant. The second thing you really need to be a designer is something that I fear a lot of people don't fully understand. You have to love it. And you can't just love it in the way that I loved a lot of things in my life, like sports in high school and beer and girls in college. You have to really love it. And the reason for that is, again, it gets unbearably challenging. You will feel like you're pushing up a rock up a hill, and it's been going up for weeks and weeks and months and years, and nothing's changed. So you need to love it, because the love you have for something will enable you the patience and the diligence to get through what would otherwise be an intolerable period of your life. So my advice would be arrogant and follow your passions. Fear is a really interesting emotion in that it's widely experienced by all animals, humans and all mammals alike, but I think it's very relatively poorly understood by most people. Fear is your body's response to perceived lack of ability. The only reason you'd ever be afraid of something in the wild is because you're not sure you could outrun it. So a lot of people, when they talk about fear, they really are talking about their own growth as a human. The most challenging part about this is all of our role models are at the end of their roads. Especially in fashion, you can't name a highly successful mid-30s designer unless you're in the industry, because they're not marketed as being there. The people at the top have sort of owned really the entire fashion hemisphere for so long. We've all kind of gotten away from what it originally was. There's really something to be said for everybody experiences fear, and it's what you do when you're experiencing fear that matters. I personally am a little bit of a broken individual in that I love that feeling of being scared and being a little bit nervous, because I think it's not something I'm graced with very often. I think people who are constantly feeling it, they become sensitive to it and they don't like it. But for me, I've always really enjoyed it because it's not a part of my daily life. So anything that can get me that rush, if you will, is more than welcomed. What I would say about this collection is that it's an addition. It's not its own show, because we feel that you can't take shows away from the customer, right? So if you put on, let's say, 3 shows this year, you're obligated to maintain that pace for next year. The problem is it's gotten to a point where some fashion houses are doing upwards of, I think, 50 collections a year, 20 and 25, truly an obscene amount of work that is taking away from the actual quality of it. So what we're trying to do is approach that from a slightly different angle. We're doing edition shows. So we release a line, and then in the coming seasons for about a full calendar year, we'll add to that line. But going down the road, that'll give us a lot of leniency to add and subtract styles as we see necessary. So I think our model is the future of the way fashion should work. I think it'll keep the young talent that we need to keep this industry afloat involved and interested. Because as far as I can tell, we're bleeding people left and right to architecture or one of the hard, concrete career paths for how you get paid in your industry. Fashion is not that path. Deeply and unabidingly so with my wife, Hannah. She is the muse, and to call her a muse would be, I think, denigrating. She's really the authority and the vision behind the company. So our private studio came out of our experience owning a factory. When we first started out of our entirely born of our own ignorance, we thought we had to have a factory to produce things. And it was such a nightmare for me personally that I have serious reservations as to whether I'll ever want to do that sort of personal level of involvement in a structure again. What I've also found is that by sort of building a process that looks like an inverted pyramid, you start with an idea and you build along that until eventually you have something like a platform that people can really understand and walk upon. What you look at, the easiest way to think of it is, instead of bricks, we use people. So the genesis of an idea is typically me or one of our assistant designers. And then it'll go through our technical pattern people, our draping specialists, and eventually you've passed it a single piece of work through upwards of 10 people's hands. And because of the modern globalization and climate and ability to interact with each other, we've been able to do that without the formal structure of a company. So we have a lot of contractors and a lot of people who work towards a common goal, but aren't necessarily in our direct purview. What that means is that we have a tremendous requirement to generate content and also to generate prototypes. We want to make sure that when a factory gets something, they also get a perfect example of it, so that there's no excuses. It's not our fault, it's their fault. And part of that is that private studio, having an ability, so first to generate content, and second to create a fully functional and perfect prototype, which in our industry is called a so-buy. so that a factory can then go and knock them out of the park at quantity for us. One thank you we absolutely have to give, and that's to Tabitha Holmes. Nothing we do would be possible without Tabitha. She's quite literally the brain of this operation. All of the garments, all of the stitches, all of the everything. It's all my vision, but it's her execution. It's her ability that really makes that driving force possible. I, of course, have to thank all of my family and the friends who have stuck with me. Not many of you, but a lot of you have managed to make it this far. And then our investors, and I'd like to give one more thank you to my wife, Hannah, who's been just very understanding through this whole process that was supposed to be a year, and now we're 4 years in. What would I like someone to know about me upon meeting me in the very first moment? Such an interesting question, because I think that question is at the heart of what I do. At the very least, is I'm a little bit intimidating, because that gives us a good starting point. That question is so interesting to me because it is at the very heart of fashion. You can say, I think it was Jim Carrey went on a rant in a beautiful Versace tuxedo about how fashion is useless. Fashion is kind of useless in that it's the only art that's perishable. But what I've always thought about that is how long do you think it took Mona Lisa to pick out her dress that day she got painted? What we wear is the thing that we communicate, the way we communicate to people without having to say anything. So what I'd like people to know about me is that I'm a precocious mix of intimidating and very friendly. So don't be scared, come on over. And I'd like to thank you for asking that question because it's such a good one. It's, I think, at the heart of what I do, and it's a good thing to think about before we go out for the show tonight. So you can check out my world at www.maxmizur.com, or you can check us out on Instagram under Max Mizur Home, Max Mizur USA, or Max Mizur. The USA isn't going to be our clothing. Home is going to be the sneak preview into our home goods and furnishing lines, and Mizur is pictures of me and stuff I see.
Thank you so much, Max. As Max said, he has several different lines of things that he's designed. All of that information, including his social media handles, is in the description below. This is actually the second time that Max has been on a Fashion Friday video. He has an adorable story about how he met his wife, and I featured that on the Are You in Love section in this video. Definitely check that out. It is such a cute story. Max is doing things a little differently. They are doing surprise releases every few weeks. So if you want to keep up, it is a good idea to follow him on Instagram and his other social media places, because there's probably always something brewing or something being released or something interesting happening. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also subscribe for good times. Hit the bell notification so you never miss a video. Max really enjoyed that question about what would you like people to know upon seeing you or meeting you that isn't visibly apparent. Is there something that you would like people to know immediately upon meeting you? If so, tell me in the comments below. And remember, you are courageous.